Welcome to a review of Survivor Season 46, Episode 2. We're into the season. We had a great intro. Richie joins us yet again. Richie, welcome back.
Thank you, bro. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to kick
Um,
this season off.
Dude, I don't know if you, so what we're gonna get into the episode. We're gonna do whose stock is up, whose stock is down. Two castaways that we think got better this episode, and one that yikes is gonna have some digging to do. Uh and then we're going to do questions for Jeff. We're going to treat it like a press conference at the end of the review. You know, what would we ask Jeff Probst if he got on the mic after each episode, just like, a coach after each game? Would be a fascinating thing. He does something similar on his podcast where he does answer fan questions. But to go episode by episode and be like, why did you make that choice? Whatever. We're going to have specific ones. They might be big picture. They might be something specific about the episode. Why did you choose that? Whatever. So if you're listening, leave a like right now before we get started. Leave a like, subscribe. Richie, first thoughts about the episode. Episode two, another 2-hour episode. I did not know we were getting 2 more hours.
Yeah,
I thought it was 90 minutes.
I kind of forgot about that. And then once I started, I was like, oh, dang. I had it recorded and I didn't get home until about like 45 minutes in. And unfortunately, like the first 30 minutes got taped over from like a newscasting.
Damn, dude. It was like you're in the 90s. You dealing with your tape getting
didn't get to see anything from the first part, but I didn't miss anything huge. It didn't seem like so.
Yeah.
But good episode.
Yeah.
Seems like we're gonna have another classic. One of the 3 tribes just keeps losing.
Yeah.
So
And I agree with you on that take, and I'll bring that up when we ask Jeff a question here later. But I kind of was pretty bored with this episode, to be honest with you. I think, but I had a weird relationship with it because, like, as a Survivor fan, I think we all have our own idea of what the perfect season of Survivor should be. It should be 2 tribes. It should be no journeys. It should be, like, cutthroat. And I think lately, the last couple of years, people have said, you know what, Jeff, we need more time on the island, like hanging out with them, seeing them struggle. And you know what? They gave us that. And it was kind of just felt like filler to me. I mean, we get certain moments like, dude, the Taylor Swift Metallica moment was so, I mean, so that's what I'm saying is we saw gameplay of people who found, is it Rendon? Or Rendon?
Arden, I think.
Arden. What?
Yeah, something like that.
You know who we're talking about. Found a beware advantage and gained further stock in the game. Did great. We saw things like that, but we also see a Taylor Swift and Metallica battle. What did you make of that? Because they kind of turned that into like they put graphics on the screen, bro. They made this a moment.
Yeah, they could have made that so much. Like they could have done it, but just made it so much less time. They did way too much time, I thought, going into it. I felt like all the people, at least me watching it, I felt like the tribe mates, how they were like, can we just get this over with? Like, do we have to be here? Can we go? Like, do we need to stick around and watch these 2 guys just list names of songs over and over? And I mean, I get why they did it. Taylor Swift, biggest person probably in the world right now. But
yeah, dude, because this was probably filmed, I believe, late spring, early summer. Maybe it is summer. So, like, I mean, Taylor Swift was blowing up from her tour point of view, but the Travis Kelce thing wasn't a thing yet. That's when it really exploded, at least in our world. And yeah, dude, it was wild because Ben was the musician who I thought had a better moment of the episode. He got fire and he made a comment like that was more exciting than meeting Nicolas Cage, which I'm like, wow, that's confessional of the week. I gave one last week, best confessional. Goes to that one, and it was cool to see his story because I do have a mixed relationship with these backgrounds. Sometimes I feel like it's overkill, and sometimes I'm like, dang, that's crazy. That like, what was it last season? A girl like grew up in a cult and stuff. Like, dude, that was crazy. And you're like, dude, that's something you would see a documentary on, but we're seeing her play out in real life. I have a mixed relationship. I connected with his. I thought it was cool. He's a guy I'm kind of rooting for. But yeah, that these other tribes aren't facing adversity like the Purple Tribe is.
yeah, I did think it was cool too, and he gave like nicknames to all the people on the tribe.
Yeah.
So they have their 6 little nicknames that they have, and then you got the moment with Charlie just trying to make a joke and just nobody laughs and it was
Yeah.
awkward silence.
Yeah, they really leaned into like awkward moments, like people
Hmm.
struggling socially. Like we're like it's clear that the producers are more interested in how people struggle socially rather than physically, right? Like in the old seasons, they would zoom in on their fingers as the rain was pouring down and it was all wrinkled up
Those
and
blisters
they
and
couldn't get fire started and it was like a struggle and they made you feel that. Now like this episode was showing a couple people who were struggling socially, and we always see that in Survivor, that like someone is an introvert and they do have a hard time, but they still can make it through, or they make it as far as they get. But they kind of leaned it. I felt that they leaned into that this episode for sure.
they definitely did, yeah.
um yeah, dude. Another big part of this episode, maybe that was a little shocking, was a challenge that again felt filler. It felt
Oh
like a
man.
long challenge that they went to
Yeah.
commercial break during the challenge. I do not remember the last time they did that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
What do you make of the challenge?
I mean, I thought that it was good at the start, and then I
Dude,
thought it
well,
was going to be,
even before we start, there was trash talk, like literal, like mean trash talk,
oh, bro,
right?
I
Like,
forgot about that, dude.
bro,
That was awkward.
they were like it was like I don't know. Sometimes in Survivor, you see them, it's like cheesy, but sometimes you feel it, and it's like, oh shoot, these people they're not joking around, and that is a
Yeah,
good edge to
she wasn't
have,
joking around at all.
dude. Yeah, Soda to me got some points this episode. She did a
Hmm.
lot of good socially, and yeah, those moments there, and for them to back it up, like because I was
They
nervous,
did,
like
bro.
yeah, even like when they turned in the idol and had the headband on it, and like Jeff
That
talked
was
about
cocky, bro.
Jeff talked about that on the podcast, and the podcast host made a joke that like, Jeff, this is the second time you've pulled out a knife in 2 seasons, because he did that with the rice bag last season,
Yeah.
and he pulled out the knife and he cut off the headband of the immunity idol. And he even said, he's like, dude, I could have made that a moment and been like, look, if you want to win this, then you can take it
Hmm.
off. But he's like, in the moment, I was like, you know what? I'm going to cut this thing off. He also said in the episode, I was shocked. And he is reflective. I love Jeff that way too. He's honest.
Hmm.
He said that he's like, I've read all the comments. I know you all think I'm soft and I'm going easy on the survivors now. And I went easy on the 2 quitters last season, which honestly to me was a
Yeah.
big deal. That was a big deal that I was like, what the
Hmm.
heck? Like these 2 people quit because of nicotine and because of they just didn't
Oh
want to be
gosh,
there.
bro.
Brandon climbing that ladder. Oh my goodness.
That was crazy.
But he admitted, he's like, yeah, I read those, and in that moment, I was like, I don't want to be cute here with this little headband. I'm gonna cut this thing off.
Mhm.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. That was intentional. That's why Survivor's
Mhm.
great. Gosh,
He's so good at thinking on his feet and just
quick.
doing stuff out of the moment at the drop of a hat. Because I mean, he doesn't know what these tribes are going to do when they pull up
Yeah.
or what they're going to say, and he always has something ready to go. I mean, after doing it for 20 something years, it probably makes sense. But
Yeah, and we'll get into Tribal later because Tribal was, kind of wild. But what did you do? The challenge was, it's one of those that I think this is where Survivor, like, I honestly don't think you can succeed at it, and this always is the best way to do it, but it always comes down to the puzzle. It always does. No matter the mud,
yeah,
no matter the hill, no matter the swimming,
I mean, they always say that it's the great equalizer.
it
That's what
is.
they call
It comes down to ultimately. It's like, take your time through it. Like if I'm into take your time through the course, because we're all gonna get stuck at the puzzle.
Mhm.
There is an argument for that. That like, dude, save your mental energy, because like when you're up there and you're breathing heavy over these pieces or whatever it is, that's probably not good either.
I don't know if I would even call this one like the puzzle part that
Yeah.
was messing him up though. It almost was more the fortitude to fight through the physicality of holding it, lifting it. You had people holding it on their head for 5 minutes at a time.
I literally,
These heavy puzzle pieces.
yeah, I would guess that the producers are going, you know what? This part of the challenge itself is the challenge. Like we should have just made this
Yeah.
one section and made this a quick, easy challenge on a beach somewhere. You don't need much setup, and it'll take them forever. And the truth about it is, it was so difficult. It brought out so much emotion in people. Like,
Oh, that was
like,
crazy.
like
bro.
it took them forever to complete it. They went to commercial, and then they come back, and the people who win fall on the ground like Michael Jordan fell on the ground, bro. Like they like really believed like this was and I believed it too, because it looked so hard.
I mean, they probably felt like that at that moment, dude.
yeah,
Just being physically exhausted, having probably close to no energy left.
yeah.
I mean, especially that purple tribe too. They hadn't eaten. They haven't had no water. They got
Yeah,
nothing, bro.
yeah, it's absolutely insane. Um, Yeah. So crazy, crazy challenge. Hilarious that the word is persistence, and they all had to, be persistent. And then so we get the purple tribe losing again. Losing again, losing again. And honestly, dude, when I was watching that puzzle, don't you think Zelensky would have been pretty helpful on that
Oh, I mean, he
challenge?
probably would have been the best one out of anybody for
Dude,
that
with that
challenge.
arched back, all that stuff,
And
they
they, and they kept Jess, who was almost
unreal.
useless in that challenge too.
Unreal. So purple is the team that loses the challenge, and ultimately we get to the very extended scene where they are suddenly scrambling on the beach. And again, this is why I say this episode was boring, is that this was so much time for a really obvious
Mm,
vote, and they spun a bunch of things, and there was a fake idol play. Like, what did you make of a fake idol? Like this early in the game, a fake idol. Usually, a fake idol is like a clutch move you have to make.
yeah,
This was more to avoid a shot in the dark.
I feel like you don't normally see the fake idol or pre-merge, but I definitely think it was because they were worried she'd play her shot in the dark. So I
Yeah,
don't think it was like unnecessary or anything. Sometimes people think it's mean or whatever, but I feel like you can't worry about being mean in Survivor.
yeah,
And I think maybe new in these newer seasons, people might be a little bit more afraid of that. But I think Q didn't seem to think that it was going to be a mean thing that he went about when he did it. And I think even when she played it, like they didn't like laugh or anything. So I felt like they did it like in good spirit and for a strategic purpose.
yeah, yeah. Ultimately, you're avoiding the shot in the dark, but. And
Mm,
I didn't love the play. It's a thing I was talking about earlier, though, that like I think we do want more time on, like, the reason we want more time on at camp and meeting these people and seeing them interact, not playing the game, but just living life. Like,
yeah.
they added things like the journey, which I think is great. And
Mm,
only the problem is like there's not enough room for it. And as a producer, you learn that there are like amounts of times that you only get an hour and 3 minutes on your episode. So you have to figure out,
yeah.
how much time for tribal, how much time for a challenge, how much time at camp, and how much time for a journey. You add in a new thing that's ultimately like 8 minutes long, takes up a whole, pre-commercial break
Mm,
time. And this episode didn't have that. And I think if it did, it would have felt more balanced, especially early in the game, man. Early in the game, it's all about voting out the weak people, to be honest. Like that really is, you are building your alliances, but
yeah.
if you're losing challenges, you're only voting out weak people.
See, I don't feel like it's been like that though. I mean, granted, we get
With
that with
Jelinski, yeah.
like, yeah. I mean, he definitely wasn't the weakest one in that first episode. Yeah, he like quit on two of them, but he definitely outplayed Jess in that first challenge.
Yeah.
And I think even looking back at prior seasons, I don't think people are voting out the weak person right away anymore. A lot of times, I think they're thinking further down and just getting rid of the physical threat. But I think it doesn't work out for those tribes, and they always end up losing two, three in a row. And when you're in a tribe of six, you're not going to do anything with that.
Yeah. It's funny because, like, I think, like, we could probably do a deep dive on, like, how challenges actually factor into a game. Because even when you get to Final Tribal, I feel like people don't lean into the challenges. And, like, you watch
Yeah.
seasons where, like, I just watched here, or what was it? Redemption Island. And that
Mm,
one tribe threw a challenge to get out Russell, and
yeah.
they were kind of cursed after that, and
Yeah.
it paved the way for Rob to win. And yeah, I don't know, like, I think journeys are now a new element in that too, that, like, dude, I think you should be able to sit at Final Tribal and lean more on the fact that, like, dude, I went on a journey and I won and I held my
Yeah. I
ground.
agree.
Like
Hmm.
Tevin now has that, like going forward, and that's a big deal.
Hmm.
So ultimately, yes, Jess goes home. But before Jess goes home, I think we got a stock down moment for me, and ultimately is going to be what secures mine.
Oh,
But
okay.
Badu, who I think it opens the episode, and he is doing yoga on the beach, or he's doing some sort of prayer,
Talk about
and
peace and happiness.
oh yeah, peace, just peace, peace. And man, he put really the only stress in this episode that was not
Hmm.
necessary stress. And he spoke out in tribal, and it's something that is setting him back, I think, If I
Mm-hmm.
am on that tribe, I do not want a loudmouth like that when we get to the merge.
100%, bro.
And
It's not going to work out.
Philip ended up, and I just watched again Redemption Island. Philip is a good example in season 22. Rob gets to Philip and calms him down. And unless
Mm.
someone calms Badu down or he can calm himself down, his stock is down because you are dangerous if you are too much of a loudmouth,
Yeah.
especially in this core middle part of the game. Um, and yeah, dude, even him like yelling at Jess during the challenge was absolutely epic. And
Bro, he went
he is
ballistic.
honestly his emotions and his expressions are fantastic, and they're what makes Survivor great. It's what made like me love Carolyn. Like she was so emotive and she
Yeah.
was so interesting. She was my favorite castaway that season. And Badu's not quite there yet for me because he's more because Carolyn took
Hmm.
time to grow too because you understood like
Yeah. Oh,
man this
yeah.
is all
I
intentional and
hated her
she's
at first.
yeah, but then by the end of it you're rooting for her and you can't believe
Yeah.
she didn't get a vote. um so Badu goes is my stock down, and we're gonna go into that
Okay.
segment now. Stock up, stock down. Who got better this episode? Who ugh, should be a little nervous? Mine's Badu for stock down. Who's your stock down?
My stock down is Liz from the Yellow Tribe. She's the
Mm,
one with like the all the colored hair, and I mean just this episode where she's just talking about how much money she makes, why Ben
yeah.
like she was like all the men want me but they can't have me, or they can't deal with a girl who makes more money than them. And I was sitting there thinking, if a woman made more money than me, I would not care. I will stay home and clean the house, bro.
I'm ready to be a sugar baby, man. Listen, I'm ready.
Yeah, I can cook, I can clean.
That's funny. No, yeah, dude, that is an interesting tactic because even and I do actually I liked. So yeah, I agree that puts a target on her back. But what I did like about
Mhm.
her was that she's like, dude, I'm here for the title. I'm here to be able to
Yeah,
say I like that. I think that's a cool um, angle and a cool mission to have because if you're a fan of
I
the
think it's a
show,
cool angle.
that is yeah
I just don't think you need to be out and about it like she's being.
yeah
Be that way like in the confessionals and on your own time. Don't go around saying all that stuff. I don't
yeah
know. That's just I don't think it's
yeah
good strategy. And I think if they lose, she's definitely in trouble.
yeah. I think that's Liz is a good pick because we're also gonna do who we think are gonna go out next tribal
Mm-hmm.
next week. Yeah. All right. Stock up. Let's go to you because I'm gonna pull mine up right here.
Hmm. This one was tough, and I think it comes with a risk, but I think Arden stock went up a little bit.
Yeah.
My only thing with that is that like if they keep winning, I don't know what happens if they swap tribes, even if they swap to two or three, and goes to a different beach. I don't know how that works with his bow and the idol
Randon.
if
You're
he
talking about
doesn't get it.
Randon. You're talking about Randon.
Brandon, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Harden. Yeah, Randon. I agree. I agree. But my one thing, I do think it stocks up obviously because he has a beware advantage,
Yeah.
and the
Mm-hmm.
beware advantage honestly isn't that beware. You just when everyone's scrambling, you just got to know your scramble route. Like that's all it is. I
Yeah.
don't think this one. I loved the cage, man. We weren't talking about the cage when the cage was around, but I loved the
That
cage.
was a
Just
good one, bro.
dude, oh, I was so like, dang, that's a good idea. That is awesome. Um, no, I agree. But what he stumbled at is that he trusted Venus, which I think Venus had
Mm-hmm.
quite an episode too. We got to see a little bit of her background as well, and kind of see that she's a little bit on the outs. Like no one's interacting with her, at least
Yeah.
in the shots we're seeing. How do you feel about his alliance with Venus? And
I honestly
do you
don't
think
have too
who do
much
you
of a
think who do you think that's going to work out more for?
I don't have too much of a problem with him doing that, only because I think if they were to lose, I don't think he's a target. I think Venus is the target, and Liz is the target. So I think he did that knowing that he doesn't have too much to worry about, and he can
Yeah,
hopefully gain some trust in her just in case he can't vote.
yeah. Yeah, I'm going Randon as well though. Stock up. I
Okay.
think I do like I like the move of attaching yourself to Venus because I think Venus is could be a shield in a way that like oh
Mm-hmm.
Venus is the obvious next vote out. She might be
Yeah.
that a couple times. At the end of this season, if you told me that who had the most votes this season, I would guess it's Venus, and I think she'll
Oh,
survive a
okay.
bunch. Like that.
Yeah.
That might be my prediction is that Venus could be, but she could survive because if people are
Yeah.
playing this game, if this is a good season, characters like Venus will do well. And I think she's got a good mentality if she sticks to it. Being on the outs right now it's okay. It's okay for now. You might not go to tribal.
Yeah,
And
I feel like
being
especially in the six, and if you're on a strong tribe, you don't have to worry as much.
yeah.
You just kind of gotta wait until you get to some sort of swap, which I feel like happens sooner and sooner now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's gonna be interesting interesting start. I like this cast. We are spending a lot of time with them. We got to know each one. It feels like quite a bit as I'm
Yeah,
looking across. Maria is still a strong player, man. I think you
dude, I
keep an
like
eye
her a
on.
lot, bro.
She is scary with that extra
Bro,
vote
she was
now
holding
too.
that block on her head too for so
Yeah,
long, and somebody on her
yeah.
tribe was like, "Maria, you haven't moved a muscle. You've been
Yeah.
fire."
I think
Yeah.
stock up Soda too is probably a great option. I think she had a really good episode. Made an impression. Yeah, Kenzie's another interesting one on Purple Tribe. Still, like,
Yeah.
do they trust her? Is she? Yeah, I don't know. How far will
Is
she
she
go?
playing too hard? It's
Yeah,
too early.
yeah, yeah. I do like Ben. I like Ben the musician. I think he's a fun one. He's got good energy too. I think.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah. I like. You know, it. It's funny. Some people like play too much of the game. We don't see their personality, but I like the ones where they're led with their personality.
yeah.
That's good. So next week, I am gonna say, I think Mariah's going home. I know she was one that she was sitting out the challenge too.
Oh yeah.
Um, she was sitting out the challenge. I think she also struggled in the group. I could
I
see
could see that.
it all depends, dude. I honestly think I could pick someone from the Purple Tribe again to just say they keep losing
Mm,
because they kind of seem like a losing team of destiny.
yeah.
Um, and if that's the case, yeah, it
And
might
but I
be
know
Kenzie,
those three girls on green all had an alliance at the start, and they brought in Charlie. So
Charlie.
I don't
Yeah,
know if they're sticking to that. I mean, I think she'd be pretty safe, and they'd go after one of the other two. But
yeah.
I
And is
mean,
there
granted, those first couple days alliances mean nothing,
and
especially
I
when you haven't lost yet.
and that's the tribe that has not found any immunity as well. The other
Yeah.
two have.
Hmm.
That one is not even on to a clue or on to the
Hmm.
dig below. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, interesting. Okay, who's your pick to go home next week?
I'm going with Banu. I think
Oh,
Purple's going to lose again, and
that's
I think it's going to be his
yeah.
time.
Yeah, that's not a crazy pick. I don't hate that.
No, it's
I mean,
not. But
I do hate that, but I don't
mhm.
hate that.
It
Um,
just seems pretty obvious if they were to lose. I think. I
yeah,
don't think he can swing the votes to where they'll vote out Kenzie.
no, I don't think so either. Yeah, it's just funny, man. I really was watching that challenge, going, man, Jelinski would have been a big help with that giant ass
Oh
back
yeah,
and spine. He would have had
the
like
long arms,
he
bro.
would have had 5 of those things. But dude, they made that challenge look really tough. And
They
if
did.
you go and listen to that podcast with Jeff Probst, he talks about like they've been wanting to do that challenge for a while. So like, and it kind of felt that way. That was
Yeah,
the one where the challenge shined, and I think yeah
that goes into my question for Jeff because my question was going to be like, is there at any point during a challenge where you like think in the back of your head like, do we need to switch this up or do I need to call the
mm.
challenge? Do we need to do something else? I
he
would
well he,
love to know if that ever goes through his head.
you know what's funny is he answers that on the podcast. He
Mm,
literally was
there you
saying
go.
that at one point he said like, "Oh my gosh, was this too hard?" He said he had that thought. And then
Okay.
eventually everyone got it together and made it happen.
Yeah.
He had the thought, "Is this too hard?" And I bet that's happened a couple times too. Like, um, maybe even like on the ones where like if people bail off, like there are some of the challenges where people are on the post for 6 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes only like 10 minutes. It's quick, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe that wasn't hard enough, or it was
Mhm.
too hard. Just depends. Um,
Yeah.
that's a good one. My question for Jeff, and he actually talked about it a little bit. He brings it up a lot. I think it's a sensitive spot for him because it's a fan point that I think he has a hard time arguing. Personally, I think he does. It's that so my question would be, dude, how hard is it to put people on tribes? Because it's funny as
Mhm.
like we think about like the narratives, it is a lot of times there's a really bad tribe and they're just awful. And that ends up
Yeah.
being like the detriment and the reason the winner won was because either that person came from the bad tribe or
Mhm.
they were just so
Yeah.
dominant the whole way. Um, like JT, I think JT season there was a really really bad tribe, and so JT was dominant the whole season.
Yeah.
Um, And yeah, so because like the question I think Jeff battles a lot is 3 tribes versus 2, and like there's got to be just a whole bunch that goes into that. Remember, there were seasons where they would literally go like, hey Richie, you over there, and hey Matt, you over there, and it's like each of you do a schoolyard pick, and they would pick tribes that way,
Yeah.
and it would just be let them pick, and then or it'd
Yeah.
be heroes villains, blood versus water. That those ones are easier to do, but 2 tribes, dude. I think it's 2 tribes. I think the seeing large tribal councils, not like this week was a 5-person tribal council in week 2, and Jeff says that New Era Survivor is all about earning it. You got to earn it. I still think you have to earn it with 10, and like
Yeah, for
I don't
sure.
know. Maybe people do get lost in the mix when it is 10. Maybe that's when you do get ambiguous characters. That's like, man, you were quiet this whole time and you hid because it was such a huge tribe. I don't know. Maybe that could be it too
I
if I'm
think
arguing for Jeff.
I think some of my favorite has been when they start with 2 and then they swap to 3. I've really liked those ones a lot
Interesting.
because I think
Interesting.
it starts off good. You have a little bit more fair equal shot, and then once you split the 3 tribes, you just don't know where the numbers are going to fall. And I think I've kind of liked. It's unfair a little bit to some of the people, but if you can get out of that, that's such a big like game winning piece you can talk about if you make it to final tribal.
Hmm. All right. Well, Richie, thank you so much for joining the show. For
Thanks for having
reviewing,
me.
thank you for reviewing. Not even the show. I mean, just thanks for coming to the review of Survivor season 2. Let us know what you thought. Leave a like. Leave a
If you have
comment.
questions, let us know. Maybe we'll answer them on the next
Write
pod.
write a review on Spotify, on Apple. All of it just helps. Um, and yeah, dude, Richie, well, let's go out on this. If we were to take Jeff to one dinner spot in Las Vegas and ask him these questions, where would we take him?
I mean, easy answers. Din Tai Fung, is it not?
Hey. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I feel like we could show him like best friend or something, and like
He
just
would like
really,
best friend for sure.
really set it off. Yeah, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, and the tribe has spoken. Thanks for being a part of history.